This is Gerardo Del Real along with my co-host, the insightful Nick Hodge, and this is episode 8 of Bizarro World. Nick, how are you this morning?
Oh, well, it's like the 7-year itch, Gerardo. The superlatives are gone.
The superlatives go away after 7 episodes, Nick. You got to earn them from here on out.
I'll do my best.
All sorts of stuff going on. Gold and silver are pulling back a bit. AOC, for those not familiar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's AOC versus everybody right now. It's AOC versus Ivanka. It's AOC versus the Democrats. I like it. We'll talk about that. The Barrick-Newmont troll that I thought was a troll turned out to be a real offer, although there is some trolling still going on. So we'll definitely get into that. Lots going on, Nick. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the markets, like you say, our bread and butter and the stuff that is near and dear to our hearts. I'd love to hear what you have to say about AOC because I haven't been following the saga too closely. So we'll unpack it all, and there's a bunch of other interesting things on the list as well. Martha Stewart continues down the Canopy path after I think baking, was it with Snoop a couple of months back or last year or something. So we'll get to all that. It should be a fun episode.
I love Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart is an OG. She is the lady, of course, that refused to tell on herself and refused to tell on anyone else. This after her broker sold her out in order to escape jail time. She did what she was supposed to do, came out swinging, and has been ever since. So I'd love to get into that. Let's talk markets. The week's closing out with silver pulling back 2.5%, gold down 1%. And, the dollar just slightly up. So it's not really dollar influence right now. I think it's likely some short-term profit taken. I'm curious to see if gold holds 1290. We had talked in a prior episode that it was important to see the major U.S. indices continue to rise, and that if gold was going to be sustainable in its run, it would have to do so alongside the indices and a rising dollar. I'm curious to see what next week brings. Any thoughts there?
You wrapped it up nicely. I think that the points we made in previous episodes continue to apply. I wrote this morning in an issue that I was wrangling on the keyboard, the same as you, that there's some short-term profit taking going on in gold, and it just ran to 1350 too quickly, which we've also said here before. And as long as we can maintain support above 1290, 1300, like you say, then I think we're still in upward momentum mode. So as long as this is a healthy consolidation and we maintain, I look forward to the next leg up. We've got a Fed meeting later this month. I think we can expect them to continue to be accommodative is the word I think we're using now. And so yeah, I know I look forward to what's to come. I think we're still in good territory for gold.
Sticking to the markets, a couple of things. Obviously, PDAC is on its way here, and there should be a flurry of news releases that I'm expecting. I want to talk Barrick and Newmont in just a second, but as I said PDAC out loud, do you think there's too many conferences? I mean, you're on the circuit a bit more than I am. I'm out there as often as I can be. PDAC obviously is not going away anytime soon, and nor do I think that it should, but it seems like everybody that believes they have some influence wants to host a conference, right? How do you feel about that?
There's definitely a lot of conferences, and you can't go to them all, or else you'd be on the road all the time. And so I have to sort of look to the market a little bit and say if they're having these conferences, hopefully they're turning a profit and there's actually local market appetite there, that there's enough foot traffic that the companies are actually benefiting from buying a booth and not just wasting corporate expenses. But there's certainly a lot of them, and there's what seems like I don't know, sects or niches of conferences, right, that have emerged, um, where certain groups go to some conferences and not others, where there's like the Metals Investor Forum and Cambridge, which take place within a couple of days of each other. And for like the flagship Cambridge show, the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, if you speak there, you can't speak at the Metals Investor Forum, and that's per Cambridge. So
Huh.
there's definitely a little like stepping of toes going on, a little tit for tat, but I think that's very like a microscopic view from inside. Like I say, if there's enough people going to these conferences, clearly that's why they exist. And again, there's many that I don't attend that you do, like what's it like mining 123? Is that what it's called
The
in
121 mining, absolutely. They have,
121? Yeah,
yep.
121 mining. And then there's like the show in London. Remind me the name of that one.
That one's actually put on by 121 as well.
So there you go. And I've never been to those, and I've never been to PDAC. So you don't have to go to them all. And then of course, there's New Orleans, and then there's the banking conferences. Like BMO had a conference, I think, in the past couple of weeks that a bunch of mining conferences were at. And so yeah, there's just a lot of conferences, and they seem to be growing. So I don't know if there's too many of them. If these people are making money, good for them. But I certainly don't need to attend all of them. And another point is, if we want to spend another minute on it, is that a lot of times now these conferences are recording the sessions, and so you can get quality videos of the company presentations, the presentations by newsletter writers and other influential investors, and there's always a bunch of people on the sidelines doing interviews like Kitco and Investing News Now and Small Cap Power and things like that. So there's plenty of content that's generated at these conferences that you can get a pretty good gist of what's going on from your laptop or your desk.
Any advice to the retail side? I remember once upon a time, over a decade ago, being somebody that was interested in the space. I was fascinated by it, and I picked a couple of conferences every year: New Orleans, San Francisco, and I made it a point to go just to get more familiar. But any advice to the retail side as to how to approach it if not everybody has the means to go to every single conference, once a month or twice a month or what have you?
Well, take a look at the companies that you kind of want to get to know or ask questions to beforehand and see if they're going to be at the conferences. A lot of these conferences have an overlap in attendance. And so you don't, like I just said, you don't have to go to all of them to sort of check all your boxes of the companies that you want to talk to. And the ones that we've already mentioned are great. The New Orleans conference is great. The one in San Francisco is good. From the Cambridge House, Vancouver, 121. Beaver Creek is great if you can get to Beaver Creek. It's not quite a retail crowd, but if you can get yourself in there as a high net worth investor or family office or something, that's a high quality conference. And then ask the right questions. That's the benefit of these conferences, is that you can usually get to large shareholders of the company, CEOs, executives, the company, corporate development, all in one space. So, make your list of questions: share structure, past track record, jurisdiction, all those things that we continually talk about, and go around and ask your questions.
Well said. Shameless plug for all the latest in the junior resource space, exclusive interviews with the top CEOs and some of the most compelling stories. Go to www.resourcestockdigest.com. It's absolutely free. All jokes aside, Barrick and Newmont, thoughts there? I had a conspiracy theory that, frankly, Barrick was just, twisting Newmont's arm and then trying to muddy up the Gold Corp deal. I said they were trolling them. That turned out to not be the case. They actually made a real offer, a no premium offer that the Newmont CEO called desperate and bizarre. That was followed, and this kind of went to the trolling aspect of it, which was somewhat accurate. Barrick's CEO recently said today, he said that no premium offer would be it. There was not going to be a premium offer coming. That was the first and last bid that they were making. So a lot of back and forth. Thoughts?
Well, again, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Your conspiracy may yet prove to bear out because the deal doesn't really seem to make sense. Like you say, it's at no premium. And if we take a step back and we can look at all the things, because everybody's got an opinion, and so there have been lots of quick takes and think pieces and hot takes written on this already. So what are the things involved here? The things involved are that over the past while that Barrick doesn't have quite the track record of creating shareholder value that Newmont does. So why should Barrick be in charge, and why should they get to be in charge? Why should they get to be in charge at no premium to the company that has done better at providing um, returns? There's the whole large fund angle and um, conflicts of interest where you have BlackRock and some other big funds owning large positions in multiple of the players involved here. There's the whole the deal might not even be approved by the DOJ or other regulatory bodies because one's Canadian and one's US, and there's going to be monopoly issues, and the government's going to have something to say about it. And so it may yet turn out to be a troll because if Barrick's not going to offer a higher price, I don't really see the deal going through.
I find it interesting that Newmont is trading 6% higher than Barrick's offer. I think that's telling. I think the market and shareholders are telling us that they don't believe the deal is going to happen. It's interesting to me that while Barrick called it a no premium offer, Newmont's CEO called it a negative premium offer, and also
That's
said
right.
that on top of that, it would add a lot of risk to Newmont shareholders in some very unattractive jurisdictions. I think that was a direct shot at Barrick's new CEO, who, of course, used to run Randgold,
Right.
where, of course, Barrick made a no premium offer there and was successful. So, the market doesn't seem to believe the deal will happen. I think it's Barrick's way to stay in the news and remain the dominant piece of the conversation, knowing that if Newmont takes Goldcorp out, they are all of a sudden not number one, right? That's just a fact. And so it's interesting to see how it plays out. It'll be a fun couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, and there have been questions from analysts I've read over the past couple of days since Mr. Bristow gave his presentation about just basically questioning the validity of the synergies of the merger, saying that the cost savings and value that would be had from combining the two companies might not hold water. And again, I've said this a couple weeks in a row, and I think you'd agree. It's absolutely fantastic for the gold space, I think, because whether it happens or not, this thing is attracting attention to the gold space. So, and that's much needed. We need outside investors to come in. So I've seen this deal. Wall Street Journal writes it up. I subscribe to like the New York Times deal book, and it was in the New York Times daily newsletter a couple times. And so, as long as it's generating eyeballs on the gold space, you know what they say in the biz. No news is or there's no news like bad news, or bad news is still good news, or something like that.
All publicity is good publicity, right?
There you go.
Do you want to talk Martha Stewart real quick? Let's switch it up.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Martha Stewart, and you're much more keen on the cannabis stocks than I am. I tend to stick to my resource lane, but she joined the advisory board of Canopy Growth. And so I would love to hear your take on this. She's known for being a lifestyle expert. Her first, I think, foray into this space will be a CBD collaboration that will cater to animals. Martha's 77, going strong. I find it interesting that prior to this, she had a show, you referenced it, with Snoop Dogg, outspoken cannabis lover, according to people.com. Where they cooked together and came up with recipes together, and it was two people from different backgrounds kind of merging to create this new product. Any thoughts on Martha Stewart? Do you think it'll be an effective partnership?
Is she really 77?
She is 77 and swinging away and sharp as ever.
That's crazy. She's 77 years old. I wouldn't believe that. I have to Google it. The partnership is obviously smart. She's a brand juggernaut. She can sell anything. She has reach into broad marketing channels through obviously her existing relationships with her existing lines. I've read quickly that Canopy is looking through this partnership to sell their lines through companies like Target and QVC. And obviously, CBD is huge right now. Just type it in Google Trends and look at the hockey stick graph go up and to the right of how many people are searching for CBD. There's CBD. Drinks and pills and supplements and lotions and dog stuff and there's CBD treatments going through FDA trials, and it's just a really big thing going on with CBD right now. And so, yeah, no, partnering with Martha is really smart, and Canopy is emerging, pulling away a bit, I'd say, from some of the other brands at this point. We used to mention Aurora, Afria, Tilray, et cetera, in the same breath. But Canopy seems to have it going on by sheer power of numbers and investment and um, the power of the deals and partnerships they've made so far give them a really good head start, I think, in what's going to be a big industry in the coming decades.
There you go. So that's obviously some things to dig into for people that speculate in the space. I think, Martha Stewart lending her name, her brand, her expertise is definitely going to expedite the mainstream appeal of a lot of these products. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Martha Stewart. I'm a fan of CBD. I'm a fan of legalization. So those are all good things that make me smile.
Yeah, I mean Martha Stewart and weed, and when you think about her shows with Snoop, I know that made a lot of people smile. So good, yeah, long time coming. Good to see Martha involved. Good to see continued news on the criminal justice reform front as it relates to marijuana. Big announcement out of San Francisco last week, I believe it was, could have been this week, and then another announcement out of Canada saying they're looking to get rid of convictions for under 30 grams, which is now legal. So yeah, fun times. Everything moving in the right direction. Being taxed as it should be, proceeds being put where they should be. It's all good to see.
I'm big on accountability. I mentioned Martha Stewart being accountable for whatever she felt she was accountable for. She went in, she did her prison time. She, whether you believe she did the crime or not, she definitely went and did the time, came out, and I'm happy and excited to see her back on top. One person that is not taking his secrets to the grave is Mr. Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former personal attorney and fixer. He is singing as loud and to whoever will listen. Thoughts on Mr. Cohen? His testimony drew the most viewers on TV for a Wednesday. It was 16 million viewers, I believe, or something along those lines. Pretty spectacular numbers for a Wednesday hearing. Any thoughts?
No, I want to hear yours. I haven't paid too close attention. I saw it was plastered everywhere. Um, I might have one thought, but take it away.
Yeah, I think he said things that everybody that pays attention already knew. He said privately Trump is racist. You can go back decades on end. I was watching a documentary recently on the History Channel that talked about, his real estate dealings and how far out of their way they went to make sure that they weren't renting to African American or Hispanic / Latino tenants. And so it wasn't subtle racism. It wasn't that, very few tenants were getting to or through the application process. It was literally, they had people coming in and they were busted for it. They had people coming in wanting to rent African American / Hispanic / Latino potential tenants, and they would immediately be told that there were no more vacancies. They would then send a Caucasian man or woman or couple, minutes later, and they got this on tape back then. And they would say, oh, yeah, we have tons of units. Let me show you some of our best places, right? When are you looking to move in? And this happened repeatedly. The Trumps were forced to settle. So I don't think we learned anything new on that front. I think it highlighted how petty both sides, both the Democrats and the Republicans are. I think both sides, with the exception of Mr. Elijah Cummings, everybody else really acted like the children that I take them to be. It was a parade of pettiness, and I'll leave it there.
That's sort of how I took it. Dog and pony show. Yeah. Sort of like a daytime drama, right? We knew there's lying and cheatings and sex and scandals, and we look anyway.
Exactly. 16 million people dead. Here's something that just popped in my head, and this is interesting because Michael Cohen alluded to the fact that there were criminal investigations related to Donald Trump that would be disclosed soon. And I don't know if he meant to do that, but he did. And it made me think, I was reading a story earlier this week that for the first time, and I forget the state, so apologies in advance, but there's a state that now will finally start tracking the amount of police officer involved shootings, which is mind boggling to think that they didn't do this in the past, right? The other thing that's not tracked on a federal level, and I don't believe on a state level, is the use of confidential informants. And we talked about the El Chapo case a couple of weeks back. And most of that testimony against Mr. Guzman came from confidential informants. And it's odd to me that the federal government and states don't provide any kind of transparency, being that they're using taxpayer money, as to what these informants are paid, what the return on investment is, the crimes committed by these informants under state and federal protection. There's no way for any of us as taxpayers in this country to vet that, to see if it's, forget ethical, to see if it's even legal or productive or efficient. I think that's crazy.
I don't know anything about the confidential informants, but I know a little bit about the police shooting stuff. And yeah, there's no concrete numbers. Um, the data is really opaque. It is not tracked in a federal sort of database. There are some nonprofits up that track data like that, and some investigative journalistic outfits that do. But it's incredible that it's not tracked. It's incredible to me that the informant thing is not tracked either.
What also hasn't been tracked historically is the fucking of kids by religion.
Well, yeah, that's an abrupt transition. That's it's not a laughing matter.
Nope.
And the Catholic Church continues to just paper over it. I assume that's what you're talking about. They had sort of a summit last week in which they tried to make like they were doing something about it, but in which really no concrete alternatives or measures or things to correct what's clearly a global issue with pedophilia in the Catholic Church. They haven't done nothing came about, is what I'm saying. In that meeting, it was just sort of a media event, and clearly the Catholic Church has widespread issues with that, and not just with children, which is obviously despicable and terrible, and should discredit them as a religion or should discredit them as a pious institution. But in the past couple of weeks, there have been some other things that have come out. Apparently, there's a pretty widespread issue with priests fathering children, and the church just brushing them aside and not giving them the care they need when it comes to development or the psychological issues that come about from being the child of a priest that was kept a secret. And apparently this is a known issue in the church. They have an internal doctrine for how to deal with this. And It was a secret internal doctrine, obviously, and this only came about because this psychiatrist or this psychologist in Ireland, I believe it was, found out that he was the son of a priest and sought other people like him online, and surprise, found a bunch of other people, started asking questions, and the New York Times got this internal doctrine. And then we also learned that there were some instances where entire houses of nuns were being abused by priests in the Catholic Church. So, um, I mean, it's disgusting. It's a to me, it's a disgusting institution. It's not one that people should look to for moral guidance, given that their moral compass is clearly askew. It's one that shouldn't benefit from your charity dollars. It's one that shouldn't benefit from tax breaks. It's one that clearly makes people uncomfortable to talk to because it's generationally indoctrinated in people, especially in certain countries in the world. One where I come from, Italy, one where you come from, Mexico. And so, look, tough issue, but clearly, not good things going on with the Catholic Church. And if you'll let me rant for just another second, I'll go on to the Methodists who
Uh-huh.
voted this week or last week to ban gay marriage in the church and ban clergy from being homosexual, or I should reverse that, ban homosexuals from being clergy. And it just points again to my take on religion, which is it pretends to be this inclusive thing that lives by the golden rule, but time and again, whether it's Catholics or Protestant or Muslims or Jehovah's or anything, it comes back to instances where they don't keep their own house in order, whether it's the way they treat kids or women.
Agreed. And that transition was meant to be abrupt. I did that intentionally because whether we're talking Martha Stewart, Michael Cohen, the feds, religion, there has to be accountability, people. I'm all for someone being inspired by church, the word, religion, but spread that message while simultaneously holding the people that are committing these criminal acts accountable. And we have to just move there as a society, whether you're from here, from Italy, from Mexico, there has to be accountability. And it's, I think people individually and institutions collectively need to continually be checked. And, this country here, the US was set up with checks and balances that are being eroded more and more by the week. So something to watch, something to watch. What else is on your
That
mind,
was
Mr. Hodge?
I was just going to say that was cathartic. And to follow up on something else that was cathartic, because it was happening just as we recorded the podcast last week. You know what is really cathartic is when something happens to the Patriots. So it's like a national holiday, right? Because nothing bad happens to the Patriots. Tom Brady is pretty, and his wife is pretty, and his kids are pretty, and they always win. And his hair is perfect, and Bob Kraft is rich, and Belichick is the smartest coach. And so, when something bad happens to the Patriots, it's like the whole country rejoices. And I was just thinking that was as I got the religion thing off my chest. It was the past week has been very cathartic because I've seen some very funny jokes and memes. And so, anyway, I just thought about that real quick.
Any you want to share?
No, we did some. We did them very quickly. I mean, prostitution rings and Super Bowl rings, um, Kraft Asian oil salad dressing, like Asian massage oil salad dressing. I mean, there've been some good ones for sure.
We'll try to put some links up, everybody. What else is on your mind, Mr. Hodge?
I don't know. You got the list. What are we talking about? I
Oh,
can tell you.
me.
Let's
I
talk about the
freestyle most of it.
scooters.
Let's talk about
Let's
the
do this.
scooters. That was on the list.
So you'll have to go to the link, but basically you've seen all these scooters popping up in towns across America.
Yep.
They had them in Baltimore before I left. They have them here in Spokane, the ride share scooters. And I'm always questioning the profitability of this sharing economy. Whether it's Uber, which has its own problems we can talk about another day, or these scooters, right? How can you drop these scooters, let people ride them for a couple of bucks and um, turn a profit when you have to maintain capital infrastructure and buy equipment and service it and have municipal fees and all the stuff that goes through my head when I see these scooters riding around towns. Well, it turns out some of those suspicions are true. And again, we can talk about Uber another day, but in the past week, research has come out about these scooter companies saying that basically they're losing $300 per scooter after they account for all the things I just mentioned, having to pay municipal fees, and not and accounting for the fact that the scooters don't last that long. One of the things that I've seen repeatedly is damaged scooters on the side of the road or thrown on the bank of a river or whatever. And so these scooters are depreciating or being damaged so fast that the scooter companies aren't making money. And so I suspect that unless something changes, either the rates go way up, because that was the other thing. You could ride the thing for like an hour or two for only $3, which is nothing. It's like, there's no free lunch. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. And so in a very real way, these scooter companies aren't making money. And again, we'll throw up a link, but I thought that was a catalyst just to a wider conversation about the sharing economy and really digging into the profitability of some of these things, even though they're convenient. And I'd point to things like I don't know, Pandora Radio, for example, that has raised a bunch of money and gone public, but hasn't turned a profit in something like ever. So
It sounds like most mining companies.
exactly. And I don't know, these are just things I think about when I think about the economy and cycles, and very much some of those things are dependent on you. If it's a free service and you sign up for free and get to use it, well, the thing that they're selling is your data and your habits and anything that they can find out about you. And so, all just very interesting things to think about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll interesting personal take. I was in Dallas, I forget, maybe 4 or 5 months ago for a sporting event. Oh, no, it was a concert actually. My wife and I went out there to see Jay-Z and Beyonce. By the way, if you ever get an opportunity to, it's a phenomenal show. But we couldn't help but notice that these scooters were just all over the place. And I mean, it looked trashy, man. Not to knock Dallas, but these things were everywhere. It's as if 1,000 people just decided to abandon them in the middle of the sidewalk and just stacked them up next to each other, which was interesting because here in Austin, it's much more organized and it's cleaner. And again, it's not to boohoo Dallas, but I don't know what the difference is in services or the people that are providing the infrastructure to return these things. But here in Austin, I see them all the time, and it's great. It functions for people. Man, what I saw out of Dallas it was an absolute mess. So that's interesting to me. The business model, getting back to that aspect of it, I think they're gonna Netflix it. We're gonna give it to you for $3 right now, and then it's going to be $4.50, and then it's going to be $6, and before you know it, you're paying $10 a ride, and probably justifying that because you've already gotten accustomed. You've formed a habit of jumping on these things, and I think looking at it logically, rationally, that has to be the business model, right? They're hoping to scale that out and do incremental increases in the price. That's the only way I see them surviving.
Oh, absolutely. They'd have to raise the price. I just think it's so interesting that um, just in the scooter space specifically, there's so many of them and they can raise so much capital. And the same thing across like these tech startups that can raise so much money and become unicorns and not be profitable. And I think it just speaks to the where we're at wider in the cycle with so much cheap money sloshing around and bull market euphoria. The stocks have gone up for 10 years that we can put $1 billion in a scooter company and let it lose $300 a scooter. I mean, that's just like it's funny stuff to me.
It is funny stuff indeed. I want to talk about my FedEx robot, my Wall-E, man. Wall-E is one of my favorite movies ever. My kids love it. My wife loves it. I love it. And FedEx just unveiled their first delivery robot. It can climb your stairs. It can hand you a pizza. We talked about AI last week and the week before, if I'm not mistaken. And, this isn't something that you're going to see in 5 years that's being piloted somewhere in a warehouse. This is something that's coming your way this summer from FedEx. And so it looks interesting. They've designed this Wall-E FedEx robot to look friendly so that people don't steal it and kick it and vandalize it. I'm really curious to see how this works out.
Don't kick the robot.
It has a longer memory than you do, right?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it works out or if it's another Amazon delivery drone. You just said not in 5 to 10 years, but we'll see. We had a bed delivered for our little girl. It's her big girl bed because everybody's moving up a stage because there's a new baby on the way. And we had a little snow the other day, and the delivery guy couldn't get up the driveway. They had to, and well, they didn't have to, but they did. They carried the bed up the driveway. And so I know I live in rural area, but so do lots of other people. And so maybe this thing, I did see it on the news, makes sense for neighborhoods where it can sort of go down the driveway or go down the sidewalk and then turn up to the driveway or whatever. I'd be interested to see when it makes it to market, but certainly the direction the market is headed with driverless cars and sensors and automations and things like that. When do you think you're actually going to see it?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know that FedEx said that, on average, well, one, it's definitely a city pilot program, right? They were citing that on average, more than 60% of merchants' customers live within 3 miles of a store location. And so their potential partners, the furniture places, the restaurants, these are all going to be predominantly within cities that have the service you're looking to deliver to you within a 3-mile radius. So I think that's going to be the baseline study for it, but it'll be interesting.
Collect the data. Let's drive it forward. It's coming, but not here yet, I think.
Agreed. What else is on your mind, Nick? AOC versus everybody. Can we touch on that briefly?
That's another one I didn't pay close attention to. I saw there was some Ivanka beef. Can you enlighten me?
I love it. So, let's start with the overreaching beef, right? AOC was very clear about the fact that if her Democratic colleagues don't want to play nice, she doesn't care to. She'll put them on the list for 2020 and remember who slights her. So I thought that was interesting. Michael Moore, left-leaning liberal Michael Moore appointed her the head of the party. I thought that was interesting. Ivanka Trump said in response to Miss Cortez's Green New Deal that she proposed that she didn't think, quote, most Americans in their heart want to be given something. I have spent a lot of time traveling around this country over the last 4 years, and people want to work for what they get. So I think this idea of a guaranteed minimum is not something most people want. They want the ability to be able to secure a job. They want the ability to live in a country where there is the potential for upward mobility. So nothing wrong with that, right? Except that AOC, who is savvy and is effective and knows how to work social media and media in general. And by the way, when everybody keeps saying this is just some bartender who happened to get lucky and get elected, she's a bartender who majored in international relations and economics. So I just want to make sure people understand that. But AOC said that her response was, as a person who actually worked for tips and hourly wages in my life, instead of having to learn about it secondhand, I can tell you that most people want to be paid enough to live. A living wage isn't a gift, it's a right. Workers are often paid far less than the value they create. In fact, wages are so low today compared to actual worker productivity that they are no longer the reflections of worker value as they used to be. Productivity has grown 6.2 times more than pay. And she went on to continue. So, 2020, you said it best a few weeks back. That's why, back to the superlatives, you're the insightful and reasonable voice of this podcast. It's gonna be a shit show, man. But I thought this was interesting. There's inter-party beefing. There's a cross-party beefing. It was interesting that it was Ivanka of all people that wanted to talk about working wages, right? The daughter of a billionaire, where most of her career, and she's a very intelligent woman, I'm not taking away from her, but she's worked, and rightfully so, under her dad's tutelage. So any thoughts on that?
Oh gosh. Yeah, geez,
Let's start with the living wage aspect of that argument. How do you feel about a living wage, and should the market dictate it? Should there be a minimum living standard? If I want to set up a small business or a big business, should I be required to pay a minimum, and should I factor that into my business plan, or should I be allowed to pay people whatever the heck I want to pay people?
Well, there's got to be a combination of both market factors and um, guidelines in place. I'm going to use here Washington as an example where I currently live, and we're going to a scale in $15 minimum wage by 2021. It goes up so much every year. I think we're like in the mid 13s or high 13s or something now. And in the next 2 years, we get to $15. And remember, more of that goes in your pocket here because there's no sales tax. So that seems to work here. I don't see a lot of gripe about it, and I live on the conservative side of the state, and I don't see a lot of gripe about it. Service workers certainly seem to like it because they're not getting the $2 or $3 they typically get, and having to rely on tips for earnings. Tips are just gravy, and we get to enjoy no sales tax. And then I'm just going to jump around a bit, but at the same time, you'll notice that Jay Inslee just declared he's running for president today. He's the governor of Washington, and he's running on a climate change shtick. So, but we just had a carbon tax on the ballot here the last election a couple of months ago. And it was defeated pretty robustly by the people of Washington, which has a proclivity to vote liberally with such a large population center in Seattle. And I think that sets up the dichotomy for the nation nicely. I think the minimum wage can play well. I don't think the Green New Deal stuff plays too well. You and I have talked about that on the podcast. Some Democratic leaders have expressed as much. More broadly, I think that wages have been stagnant since the 70s. I don't think the Democrats do themselves any favors by framing themselves as money grabbers. And I think that's a psychological issue with the voters, because even though they're proposing to tax people that I think $15 million was the number, and there's nary a few people that make that much money in this country. People think that and this is true, people think that they make that much, or that they're going to make that much, or that there's just a general there's an American sentiment that's anti-tax increase. And so I know that's a lot of thoughts jumbled together, but that's my thoughts on that whole situation. I also think the forces that cause some of those things, stagnant wages since the 70s, and things are much bigger than right and left politics in the US. And I wish that sometimes people would just have a bigger mind about things and not reduce it always to, um, right and left or Democrat and Republican. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
I think they're good thoughts. And we touched on it a few weeks back about whether or not we believe that, proposing these somewhat extreme proposals, for lack of a better word, is the new way to negotiate. I mean, it's been successful somewhat for Donald Trump. It's also been lately somewhat of an Achilles heel for him, right? This North Korea summit, which was prepackaged, signing ceremony planned, already included, achieved absolutely nothing. We went over there. We had negotiated supposedly in good faith, had an agreement in place, and depending on who you believe, we walked away because North Korea scaled back some of their commitments. North Korea says it's not true, but the bottom line is that tactic of playing nice didn't work. It really upset and pissed me off, is a better word, that Donald Trump went ahead and said that the young American who died under North Korean custody did so without North Korea's leadership knowing about it. For him to sell that young man and his family out publicly and not even come back with anything to show for it, that ticked me off, to be perfectly honest. And it has nothing to do with left or right, just common human decency. But back to my original point, this AOC versus everybody point, I actually think that that's just the way that politicians are being told by voters is the only way to negotiate in order to move things forward. And I hope I'm right. I hope that this leads to compromise in the future. And I hope there's politicians in the wings that can bring it back to civil discourse. But man, it's a show out there.
It's a show. It's only going to get worse. Like I said, the Washington governor declared today for the Democratic primary. So there could literally be dozens of people running. So there'll be lots of ideas floated. You'll have lots of choices, and that's good for democracy. So, and I think you also get to have a bit of fun.
I think you'll have more fun than the average person, Nick.
I enjoy it.
You know who has fun?
Who's that?
Elon Musk has fun.
Yeah, you have to update me on this too. Did he really tweet a picture of himself as Eminem, or did someone make that?
I haven't seen that. The troll that he did yesterday. And I mean, again, he makes people watch. That was my tweet. Whether you like him or you don't like him, he makes people look. So, he took down the Tesla website and said exciting things are launching, and he teased this, and all the major business outlets, decided to give him, top of the hour coverage. And it ended up being that they were finally introducing a $35,000 model of their Tesla Model 3. But the real news that was buried was that they were shutting down all their gallery stores. So they've been petitioning to the U.S. government on a state-by-state basis for inclusion to be allowed to traffic as a car dealership, right? They up until now, they haven't been given that green light. And so they've been denied time and time again. And finally, I think he said, 1, we need to save money as a company. 2, we're not getting the support that we need. So the real news to me was the fact that he was shutting down something like 350 stores. And again, he was able to package that in a way where people felt like, wow, Elon does it again. He just introduced this product that they'll be able to scale out and sell into profitability someday, right? And say what you say, that guy is a media genius.
Yeah, no, he can get it done for sure through social media and podcast and other channels. I saw somebody tweet that I thought he put his face, and this is funny because I don't think it's true. He put his face on Eminem's body, and he tweeted something about the SEC won't let me be something, something, something like a rat. But I guess someone else made it. That's what I thought happened this week. Shows how much I know.
I'm on his Twitter account as we speak. I don't see it. But that's actually hilarious because I remember the
Yeah.
song. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good one. We got to find it and put a link up to that.
I'll do it.
That's good stuff. The SEC won't let me be. Oh, what else is going on, Nick? Baseball is back. This is the part of the year from now until hopefully the end of October, everybody, where you will get to hear more than you want about how much I love my Chicago Cubs, why we're going to win the World Series. I have a friendly wager with a mutual acquaintance of ours, Mr. Mickey Fulp, the mercenary geologist, who is a big Cardinal fan. We happen to share a division, so the winner of the division, me, Cub fan, him, Cardinal fan, will buy the other a nice bottle of wine, which will be promptly consumed. I'm excited for baseball. It felt like a long time. We ended the year on a sour note last year. It was disappointing. I'm glad to have a new year. Kind of like the 2018 junior resource market. I was so happy when it was 2019, and it's been a solid start to the year. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'll let you handle the baseball. I'm glad it's back. I don't pay too much attention to it. I'm excited that March means that March Madness is approaching because I run an office pool where, of course, no money is wagered.
Of
And
course. Let's repeat that.
so,
Where no money is wagered.
so I'm looking forward to that because I'm not even a college basketball fan per se, but I do like to participate in the bracket challenge and watch the March Madness games. I think they're exciting and again something that people can just put their differences aside, not worry about the politics, and just enjoy a couple of weeks of emotional basketball and young kids having fun. And it also means that turkey season is approaching, so that opens April 15th, and I'm excited about that. Although don't know how much hunting going to get to do this year because that's also the birth date of the new babies. So we'll see.
You have a lot going on, Mr. Hodge. Can I ask, do you have Gonzaga as your top pick?
I don't know, man. They typically seem to do well in the early stage of the tournaments, but not so much when it counts later on. And I think I saw this week that they moved to number one in the country. I've seen them play in person once now. They're obviously a good squad, but I don't know how deep they'll go. In the pool I run, you can enter up to three brackets. So maybe I'll have them win it all in one of them. You gotta diversify.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In sports and in business, right?
That's right.
Good. Anything else on your mind, Nick? I know we got to do stocks of the week. That's important. And by the way, that's worked out. I mentioned Chicana a few weeks back, maybe 3 weeks ago. I think they're up something like 70% since then. They've been on a good run. We talked Cucho Copper last week. They're having a big day, and I think they're going to have news with PDAC going on. I think they mentioned a couple of weeks back in their news release that they planned on releasing an updated resource estimate, which is a prequel to a feasibility study, which will be published later this year. I expect that to surprise to the upside, but thoughts there, unless you have anything else that you want to touch on, Mr. Hodge.
No, helps that copper is at or approaching $3 for both Chicana and Cucho. I'd add that we've also talked about Atlantic repeatedly on this podcast, Atlantic Gold, and that stock is doing exceedingly well the past couple of weeks with some new drill results out. Do you want to stock this week, or are we not doing that?
No, let's do it this week. And back to Atlantic, you've been on that for a couple of years now. They just hit all-time highs. Was that correct?
Yeah, they're doing really, really well. So we've talked about them a couple of times. The mill is up and running. They've been producing gold, but now they're looking to link additional satellite deposits to this to show how big it could get. So exciting things going on there. And they got that big share position in Velocity, who has the similar style mineralization in Bulgaria. So yeah, exciting for Atlantic Gold. But quickly, my stock of the week, and I won't take a lot of time. It's a really big one, so everybody knows it, but you should pay attention. It's Constellation Brands, because the stock has been really weak lately, but they own something like 30% of Canopy, which we talked about earlier with the whole Martha Stewart thing. And if they exercise their rights to buy all the shares that they can, they'd own a majority, more than 50% of Canopy Growth as the world's leader in the canopy or in the cannabis space. So, and Constellation has been weak because beer sales have been weak, but beer's only like really one of the tricks they do. They do wine, and they do liquor, which is actually doing really well. That's why beer's not doing well. And clearly they do cannabis now. So Constellation, you might want to check out.
It's interesting that my pick is also kind of a contrarian pick. I think we both kind of fashion ourselves as contrarians. I think you have to be when speculating in the market. You're either, a part of the group in tow that you sell to, or you're one of the contrarians that's buying when nobody's looking. Azúcar Minerals is a copper explorer in Veracruz, Mexico. It's run by a gentleman by the name of Morgan Poliquin. They had some news that didn't move the market at all. It was, they hit 18 meters of 0.51 grams per ton gold from like 530 feet, or from 530 meters, I'm sorry. So nothing that's going to move the market right now, but there was a comment there from Morgan that I think will be interesting to follow. He said that they believe they clipped a mineralized intrusive and that they hadn't cut across the potential porphyry body to date. They have 3 drills turning right now. They are well cashed up. They trade at about 32 cents Canadian. Newcrest, deep porphyry experts, the Australian group, came in at, I believe, $1.32 a share last year. So the company's well cashed up. They own their own drills. They have multiple drills turning. And I think in the next month or two, you're going to see a major discovery out of Azúcar Minerals. It's a heck of a speculation at these levels.
Maybe you read Early Advantage this week.
I do. And I encourage everybody else to. You want to, you want to tell people about it, all jokes aside?
Similar sentiments. No, they clipped the porphyry, it sounds like. So, no, everything you said, Azúcar looks good.
And they not only clipped the porphyry, but they believe there's, 4 to 5 porphyry centers on this district scale package. So, again, a lot to be excited about. One more note, they already have what internally I believe, and this is me speculating, could be a starter pit, a heap leach starter pit at the Norte zone. I'll speculate there's maybe between 40 and 60 million tons. We could argue about the grade there of copper gold at the Norte zone, but I believe that that's not the prize that Newcrest came in for. They're looking for, a big porphyry and a big monster tier 1 deposit. We'll see what they come up with.
Yeah, and like you said, Newcrest was comfortable paying 4, 5, 6 times the price, so it's exciting.
And multiple times, the stock went from 135 down to 50 something. They topped off, like you said, in Early Advantage, one of Nick's excellent newsletters that he writes. And the stock got down to the low 30s where it's at now. If you want a contrarian copper play and you can absorb the exploration risk, Azúcar Minerals. Venture Exchange, ticker symbol AMZ, over the counter AXDDF. Nick, it's been a blast. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, that's it. Looking forward to next time.
All right, everybody. Gerardo Del Real here with my co-host, the responsible, the insightful, the father-to-be for the 3rd time now here soon. And a gentleman who I'll see here in a couple of days. Instead of PDEC, we decided to go meet up in San Diego and get some sunshine. So I'm looking forward to seeing you, Nick.
We'll do it.
All right. This is episode 8 of Bizarro World. Have a great week, everyone.